Forspoken is mediocre. It's probably not the first time you hear that. And I hope for every single one of you that you have not made the mistake of pre-ordering the game. And if you did, my condolences. Forspoken is an unoptimized game with an empty world, a boring story, and repetitive tasks. Sounds like a next-gen AAA title. But hey, we'll have to up the prices to $80 because the game quality is always getting better, right? Games like these always remind me of why I should not be excited about AAA titles anymore. And games like these also remind me of why pushing the boundaries of game development and the spread of indie titles is a good thing. Because indie companies actually care about the quality of their game, not how much they'll earn from it. Well, some of them, at least the successful ones. When I first heard about the game Forspoken, I was actually really excited about another Square Enix wonder. It looked awesome, it had the right dynamic, the particles sparked a flame in me, and something about the game really spoke to me. But then the first gameplay teaser came out, and that practically halved my excitement for the game. I thought to myself, oh god, another Ubisoft-like huge and bland open world with a list of chores for you to do. But I still had that little spark of hope, that small light at the end of the tunnel, a Fata Morgana. I mean, it still had some potential to be maybe as good as Horizon Zero Dawn. Unfortunately though, I was rapidly disappointed. Let's begin our journey with a story that's straight out of mainstream heaven. TLDR, you play as Freya, a girl whose life is going downhill. She was hunted down by a gang of skinny girls in leopard hoodies because that's exactly the type of people mob bosses sent to collect their debt. They then set her apartment on fire, and of course our protagonist couldn't rescue her stolen, saved up money that almost got her locked up and her cat. She decided to save her cat first and then leave the apartment without the bag of cash. And after all that drama, we have a teenage girl in a midlife crisis who is magically transported to an alternate world that urgently needs a savior. Yeah, so original. I've never heard of that before. You've impressed me there, Square Enix. But the story is not the only thing that's super cringe. The dialogues are too. You can really see that the teenager protagonist was written by 30 to 40-year-olds who have not interacted with teenagers in decades. It's super hard to build any connections to any of the characters in the game. But the biggest problem with the dialogues in this game is the constant back and forth between Freya and Cuff. Cuff is her little bracelet companion that is basically giving her her magic abilities and is protecting her from the corruption in the new world. And it's also really, really annoying.
Can we just not talk?
Fine. Fine by me. Suit yourself. I love a bit of silence.
Fantastic.
These two sound like a married couple arguing about divorce. I don't like to say it, but Freya and Cuff really make you appreciate silent protagonists a lot more. But hey, at least you can lower the amount of Cuffs talking in the settings. I mean, if you know that something could be super annoying, why even put that into the game? I mean, it's so much wasted potential on the connection these two could have had. It's honestly just sad. But after so much negativity, I'll have to give credit where credit is due. The gameplay doesn't suck. The free running in the game is super dynamic and has a really nice pace. The combat is also pleasantly fluid and has a good variety of different skills that you can learn and equip throughout the game. It's honestly super fun dashing around, performing jump and charge attacks with a pretty fluent system. The particles are probably the most fun thing about the combat. At least for me, I'm a pretty big particle guy. The problem with everything though is that there's nothing really worth doing it for. Running around the world is fun, climbing up mountains is fun, beating up zombies is fun, but there is no reward for doing so. The world looks really dull, and thus even after climbing up the tallest mountain, the view is nothing to write home about. Beating up zombified creatures also gets really repetitive after a while. I'll have to say, fighting the big creatures in those little dungeons was actually very enjoyable, because they all had different mechanics and their own unique little twist to them. The crafting in the game works, but it's not something that you can sink hours into. You just collect the materials that are on the way and use them later for creating health potions or other somewhat useful stuff. I'll have to say armor progression looks really good though. Freya is a really good designed character. There is nothing to complain about here. But apart from the good mechanics in the gameplay, we'll have to come back to the very start of the game. It starts out super slow with so many redundant cutscenes that just interrupt the flow of the game. Instead of stopping the gameplay and showing the player how Freya apologizes for pushing a civilian, just make it a pop-up dialogue like they do in GTA, for example. Why stop the gameplay? I don't know if they wanted to have a contrast to the fast fast pace of the combat and parkouring, but that's absolutely not the right way to do it. Once you get into the open world, it gets better. Less cutscenes, more action, but still kind of awkward pacing. You then have the ability to roam around, explore more or less identical looking villages for loot and new spells, look for photo spots, and just do your basic Ubisoft chores. I hate saying it like this, but it really feels like I'm not playing the game to enjoy it, but rather fulfilling specific tasks that the game gives me. There is no sense of exploration either, because the game constantly scans for nearby treasures on the radar. You're basically collecting them on the go and you're not specifically looking for them, which robs the game of desire to explore. One thing that I also absolutely hate is the reuse of assets in the so-called labyrinths. They all have a pretty similar, if not equal layout, only differing in color and enemy variety. It's no fun doing them. It doesn't give you that break from the usual gameplay that it's supposed to give you. I swear to God, sometimes I just feel like halfway through the process of developing the game, they just swapped out the developers with an AI. Because it just feels like they wanted to implement many different aspects of gaming, but left them unfinished. And they were like, screw it, we'll just keep it in the game to make it more full. But it does the exact opposite. To me, it makes the game feel a lot more empty. And I'll also have to talk about optimization. I can't really give you an outlook on how the game is on the PS5 because I played it on the PC, but I can tell you that it feels like a poorly optimized port to the PC. I have an RTX 3080 and I was struggling to keep my FPS above 60 frames all the time. The developers stated that 4K 60 FPS would only be possible on an RTX 4080. And let me tell you, the graphics in this game do not justify such requirements. It doesn't look bad, but it certainly doesn't look that good. One thing that I do have to give credit for is that I had no troubles playing with mouse and keyboard. Even though controller play is intended, they managed to implement that part pretty well. I'd love to talk more about the game, but unfortunately there is nothing to talk about. I was really excited about this game and I was just disappointed. Forspoken really showed me once more that pre-ordering is not something any person should do anymore. Honestly, I'd love to recommend you to wait for a sale and pick up the game on a lower price, but I don't think I could even do that. I'd say that the only thing that this game is worth picking up for is the combat and free running, and that you can do in the demo. You could just enjoy a few hours of doing just that, and for me it would be absolutely enough. This game has nothing going for it except for this, and for that reason, please just don't buy it. At least not for 80 bucks. Use this money for family presents instead. But what do you think about the game? Have you tried it yet, or did you watch this video to see if you should try it? Was I able to save you some money? Let me know down below. Also, check out the video on my take on Hogwarts Legacy and my thoughts on if it's gonna be good or not. Thank you, bye!